Coming into the Orpheum is an experience. There is a certain vibe that you get when you walk into the Orpheum. People can feel the history.
It has withstood the test of time right here at First and Broadway.
This place is beautiful. It's astonishing. I mean, look around. But it's like any 100-year-old lady. She looks good in soft focus.
I look beyond some of the disrepair that is still here, that you can still see, and I see a beautiful theater.
I think seeing it as a work in progress, people see the history. They understand that there's a lot that's gone on here, and that just adds to the feeling you get when you're experiencing a show here.
Well, I still sometimes get a little winded when I walk into the theater, and it just takes my breath away. A little overwhelming in the sense that in Wichita, Kansas, we have something as grand and as beautiful and amazing as the Orpheum.
The Orpheum was actually built by a group of Wichita businessmen who saw the need to expand the entertainment opportunities for Wichita.
A group of 10 local businessmen banded together, put their money together to raise the funds to have this built.
They got together and went with the Orpheum Circuit. The Orpheum Circuit were theaters throughout the United States that made arrangements for booking and traveling artists who would travel from city to city, usually on a weekly basis.
Our architect, of course, was John Everson, and he wanted to create his first atmospheric style theater and chose Wichita to do that.
He was the must-have theater designer of the time, and so he designed the Orpheum Theatre.
His vision for that atmospheric piece was to create to feel like you were in somewhere completely different than just being in a theater or watching something on stage. And so he wanted to transform you into feeling like you were in a Spanish courtyard.
They were built in ways that finance departments would not support these days. I mean, you look around, you see the architectural flourishes, the things that don't have to be there to show a movie or to do a performance, but enhance the experience.
At the time, nobody really knew what the taste of the public would be over a period of time, so they sort of hedged their bet on building the theater in conjunction with an office building.
The theater was built at the same time as the Orpheum Office Center, the office building that is joined to the theater structure.
That would help ensure the income from the investment.
Well, I think in the 20s, when obviously we were built in 1922, that everybody was looking for a good time. You know, prosperity was in America, it was the roaring 20s.
There were quite a few small theaters in downtown Wichita, and the Orpheum was the new grand one when it was built in 1922.
There were a number of really cool theaters in Wichita back in the day, most of which are no longer with us. The Orpheum and the Miller were the two crown jewels.
In 1922, when the Orpheum opened, it was a vaudeville house, and it was part of the Orpheum Circuit. And so we had pretty big names at the time, like Fanny Brice was here, we've got Jack Benny, George Burns and Gracie Allen.
Everybody who was anybody in terms of vaudeville performers played here. Back in the day, Gypsy Rose Lee, Mark Brothers, Houdini, a host of notables.
It changed in its purpose, though, over a period of time. When the theater first opened, it would show silent black and white movies as a filler between the rest period from the first show of the vaudeville act and the second.
And then with the advent of talkies, with movie sound, the Orpheum pivoted and became more of a movie house. In 1929, we installed sound to keep up with the times of the movies.
It was a vaudeville house till movies killed vaudeville. And that was a pretty quick and sudden death. Movies came along and vaudeville went bye-bye.
Looking back, knowing what was going to hit this country and the world, that period of time to me was very precious. Knowing that what was going to be facing them on, 1929 and the 30s, that to me that time is even more precious.
I'm sure I did at one time. I don't remember if it was the first run or even later. At the time when 1945, 46, the movie theater began to grow. When I was growing up, it was not unusual for kids to get on the bus, ride downtown, go to a movie, get out of the movie and ride the bus home. But that was fairly short-lived.
We shifted our focus there and still continued to host performing acts into the 30s and 40s. We had performers like Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, Count Basie are some big ones that played here at that time.
It was a first-run movie house until the early 70s, when a couple of things contributed to the demise of downtown movie houses. One, there was an exodus out to the suburbs. Nobody wanted to live in the core of the cities anymore. And two, the first multiplexes came along.
In the 70s, the theater really was beginning to show its wear. It hadn't been maintained very well. I'm not sure it's the kind of place where people really wanted to get dressed up and go to.
That idea of, the suburbs brought a lot of safety and comfort to people, but it took away a lot of livelihood to downtown.
The advent of the multiplex coming on took audiences out of downtown Wichita and into the suburbs for those multiplex experiences.
But it completely changed the economics of a single screen downtown theater.
Sat dormant, empty, shuttered. If you would come in here during that time period towards the end of it, it was not pretty. It was definitely a deteriorating interior that was left behind.
Hole in the roof. We had urban campers in here, pigeons, no running water. You can draw your own conclusions from there.
We have some pretty upsetting pictures of the exterior of the building, where the marquee has been taken down and it's just all painted white and it's kind of sad looking.
The theater had been stripped of fixtures and pretty much anything, the chairs, the seats, anything of value was taken out.
And so that it was just an empty shell that would have needed the wrecking ball to finish it off.
I understand that it was close, like within a week or 2 weeks, they were going to wreck the theater.
A group of very, very committed women and community volunteers. Marge Setter and Millie Hill didn't want to see one more theater, one more historic building be leveled. They'd lost the Miller and it woke up the next morning, it was just gone.
It was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1980, which saved it from the wrecking ball.
And then a host of volunteers who will never get the full credit they are due came in, made it at least reasonably operable.
Team of volunteers started cleaning it up, which was, that took about a decade to clean it up and get it to start getting it in working order.
The first volunteers that came in to help out, it was hazmat duty, and they are truly the unsung heroes of the earliest pieces of the Orpheum being a viable performing arts center again.
It was a hands-on effort. It was definitely, again, community-driven. These were individuals, boots on the ground, coming in to make a difference and protect the building and bring it back to life, essentially.
There were folks early on that had a vision, and it had to be a vision, because if you just came in and looked at the reality, you'd be like, there's just no way. A group of folks stepped up and said, this can be something spectacular in the future and something very close to what it was in 1922.
Good evening. Nice seeing you again.
I would love to see it fully restored. You see theaters that are the same size and similar communities as ours that have been fully restored, and it just, you see that potential, you see what this could be, and I can't wait to see that here at the Orpheum.
We're not going anywhere. We're having one of the best years literally in the history of the theater, and when you vote with your dollars and come out to see a show here, you help support that. On the operations side, we are solid. But we're still working to raise enough money so that the rest of this 100-year-old lady looks as cool as the back of the auditorium, the front of house, the concession area, the box office area. All of that has been restored. But know that any donations you can make are greatly appreciated and much needed.
From top to bottom, dressing rooms, everything, and an endowment to continue support, you're looking at about $12 million. For the auditorium, we feel like we could get it done and have a healthy endowment for future, repairs and things like that for about $9 million. But it doesn't really make sense to do the auditorium and go dark and not do the stage. And we'd really like to be able to give our performers air conditioning on the stage. We feel like they deserve that.
But to get where we need to be, we can't really have bake sales and car washes. And so the more people who come in and fall in love with this place, and the more that they can maybe talk to their elected officials and say, hey, let's let a little of that money fall off the table to bring this theater back to what it was for the next 100 years, the better off we're going to be.
This theater was created for the community, and we would not be here without you. So if you'll grab a glass and join me in a toast. One of my favorite people of all time was Albert Einstein, and he said, learn from yesterday, live for today, and hope for tomorrow. So let's raise a glass to the Orpheum's past, her present, and her very long future. Cheers.
Here, here.
I probably get more scared of what First and Broadway looks like without the Orpheum here than never being restored.
This corner at First and Broadway has so much to offer. We hope to keep the light shining bright for another 100 years.